Welcome to Daughters of Divine Joy, the radio show for women who are tired of choosing between success and their sanity. Each week, we gather around this virtual table to talk about the things nobody else is saying out loud: how to lead without burning, how to set boundaries without guilt, how to honor your calling without sacrificing your soul. This is a sacred place for women who are done accepting chaos as normal and ready to claim the joy that's been their birthright all along. This is Daughters of Divine Joy. Well,
Hey, daughters, how are you today? I have missed you. I've been waiting for this day to come. So, how was your week? And what did you do with those 2 snow days we had this weekend? So I'm sure some people had to go to work because, some of us are first responders and we have to be out there at the hospitals working, or maybe, you're cashiering at a grocery store part time or something. You got to be out there. But for those of us who did not have to be, I hope you had some rest and some enjoyment and some relaxation, because that's exactly what I did. So I am so glad you're here with me today. We talked about the holy no last week, and we started out by talking about how rest is resistance and how our Sabbaths are holy. And so this week I wanted to talk about the emotional margin. Now, you remember what margins are, right? There's that little space on the side of the paper that you never write in. That little space that lines up is where we don't. It's the rule. It's the rule that tells us we don't go over here and we don't go over there. It's the empty space that you leave on the page, and it keeps everything nice, neat, and orderly, and it looks good when you have your margins set and you don't go beyond that. It's much like a boundary, okay? So I want to talk about creating some emotional margins, because we cannot just open ourselves up and give access to everybody and a mama. And usually that's how we get into the space of being overwhelmed. So I want to talk about keeping that space. Today on the scroll, you're going to see the banner that's scrolling through on the bottom. There is an invitation for you to text the word check to 66866. And it's going to ask you to send your first name, email address, and your cell phone number. In return, I'm going to send you the boundary checklist for the busy Black woman. Now, let me tell you about this checklist. It is a comprehensive list of 10 areas and about 24 types of boundaries that you can engage in. And I'm going to tell you, as I was doing the research to put this checklist together, I realized this. There are areas of our life where we never ever think about having boundaries, financial boundaries. We need to give from our overflow. You don't always have to give as a sacrifice. So, because I know some stories, and I'm sure you got them too, where you had your last and you lent it to someone, and that person took your last, not even, and you said, "This is my last," and they took it and went on about their business. And if you had to even fix your face to ask for it, they're going to give you attitude, right? So we don't give from that space. You give when you know you have it to give. You give when you know that, you know what, if I don't get it back, it's all right. I'm fine. And that's with giving away space in your emotional capacity, space in your emotional cup. Give what you have. Because what the result is we end up being angry, disappointed, mad, frustrated, and all kinds of negative energy is dwelling around in us because of somebody else's agenda. Okay? So we're going to talk about it today. Um, just for a little while, I want to touch on what an emotional margin is. Now, I talked about margin on the paper, and I talked about how we pour out. Emotional margin is just so you can make sure there's always something in that cup. Okay, there's always space. And if you remember, we would leave the margins on the paper, and usually we had that college rule paper, the one with the loose leaf. You put it in a loose leaf binder, and it would leave space on the side, and you turn your homework in, and your teacher would write in that space. And there in that space would be notes for you, maybe some improvements you can do, maybe telling you that something was wrong or what was right, or maybe a comment of encouragement. If you had a really good teacher who was going to give you some feedback that you can use, instead of just saying you're wrong. So the margins is that space. And for us, when we talk about pouring, we often talk about the give that visualization of pouring from a cup. The margins for a cup is that space that's always going to stay full. There's always going to have a little something in there, because that's the space for you. That's the space where you have, so that you can sit down and recharge and give back to yourself. And so what happens is, and why women tend to not have those margin spaces, is because we keep giving. We give and we give and we give. It's this idea that we have to be busy with every moment of our lives. Because if we're not busy, then something's wrong. If we're not doing, then something's wrong. If we're not being productive, then maybe we're a little less than what we thought. But no, sis, that's not the deal. And so what I'm telling you is that today, we're going to talk about how to create that space, okay? How to make time for ourselves, and how to be able to have something a little extra left over, so that at the end of the day, if somebody comes at the 11th hour and says, can you, maybe you'll have enough energy to say yes, or maybe you'll have enough energy or just enough reserve where you say, I can't right now. Because whatever you have left is reserved for you and you alone. And that's a sacred place to be. And so let's talk about some of the cost of not having margins. Sickness. Sometimes it's a physical sickness, like maybe you have a headache or that feeling of being tired. But more so than that, it could be our immune systems being compromised because we're giving so much of ourselves. It could be that maybe some autoimmune disease we have starts flaring up because we're not taking time to rest. It could be a number of other things, like maybe because we're so busy, we're not eating, and it's impacting your blood sugar levels. There is so much that we do to ourselves that causes physical anguish because we're poor. We're just concentrating on what we can give to somebody else because they ask. Also, emotionally, you start to get irritable. You're yelling at your kids because you're stressed out. Spiritually, you don't hear God. You don't hear nothing. You don't even have time to pray. Maybe you even miss some church services or whatever. And you don't have to go to church every week in order to have a relationship with God, but you do have to put some effort into the relationship. So maybe you don't have time for the spiritual practices that you usually have to connect to the source of all love, the source of all light, the source of all things good. And because you're not making those connections, something feels off. There's a void inside. There's a lack of energy because that stream that you're getting from the source, that water, that air, that breath, you're not getting. Okay. Those are the things that we need to have in the margin. Relationally, sometimes we find that our relationships will start suffering because we don't have the energy to listen, to show compassion, to be patient. And after a while, people question, what's wrong with you? What's going on with you? And you're like, nothing's going wrong with you. Know how we get. How I'm gonna speak for me. I know how I get. Okay, I'll speak for me. Okay, I'm not gonna say because I'm sure y'all are goodness and light and love and. But this sister right here, I get an attitude every once in a while. Okay. Especially when my rest is not there, especially if I'm hungry and haven't taken care of those things. But that's nobody else's fault. That's a decision we're making when we're pouring and not caring for selves. If you want to give the best of you away, you can do that, but you can't give all. Okay? It's just a Shaka Khan song is coming to mind right now, but I can't remember the title of it. So Proverbs 4:23 says, "Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life." I'll let that rest right there in the atmosphere. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Not everybody else's, of your life. Okay, so we're not going to get too heavy into the preaching because I got some commentary about that. However, I'm going to be me, and part of who I am is a preacher. So you're going to get it one way or the other. All right, so let us just be mindful of that. Because if I can't be myself, I'm not going to be here, and that's just it. Anyway, so here's the shift. We need to go from how much can I fit into my day? Well, how am I going to make all this work? To what needs room to breathe? What do I need to make space for? What is demanding a little more time and effort for me? And where am I going to get that? Where can I build in some time to prepare myself for that? So these are questions that we're going into this asking, because the margin and creating space on the margins is about having wisdom about your time, having wisdom about your capacity to do without causing self harm. And I'm saying self harm because if you cannot fix your lips to say no when you're tired and when you're at capacity, then you are causing self harm. This is not what people are doing to you, this is what you're allowing others to do. And because you're allowing it, you're responsible for that. Because instead of saying yes, there's an alternative answer, and it's no, I'm not available. Okay, we talked about that. But get the boundary checklist, and it'll give you some ideas of how to say no and what it sounds like to say no. And I think what you'll find out is that it's not as hard as you think it is. It is not as hard as you think it is to tell somebody, I need space. And I think, when you say certain things out loud, it's going to resonate and ring with you. And you're like, yeah, that's right. I can't do this right now. Time for this. I'm tired and I deserve the rest because tomorrow is filled too. And I have to be ready for that. And I don't want it to drain me. I don't want it to make me angry. I don't want it to turn me into something that I'm not. So we create the margins. Now, I know what you're saying right now. I don't know, I ain't got time to create no margins. I'm busy. I got things to do. My job, my job. You don't understand. I got 4 kids. There ain't never no margins. There are. There are. And you're going to create them. And it's not extra work, it's soul work. It's not extra work, it's the necessary work. It's not extra work. It's what you need to do for you. It's your way of giving yourself love. by saying, you know what, girl, you do too much. You are too good. You are too open and welcoming not to deserve an opportunity to watch television at night. An opportunity. Hey, how you doing? Thank you for tuning in. You deserve the opportunity to take a warm bath at night if you feel like you deserve the opportunity to engage in one of your favorite romance novels. You deserve the opportunity to kiki with your girl on the phone. You deserve that. And so if you don't take the time, if you don't take the time to enjoy some of you, what do you think others are going to do? Because they're looking to get their agendas filled. And if you don't put you on the agenda, I don't know how you're going to do this. So taking time to understand that you have to find time, or you have the time, but you have to decide that that time is, you have to decide that is more valuable for you to take that time than to spend it on someone else. That is more valuable that you keep it instead of giving it away. Okay? You have to make that decision. Other people depend on me. I can't just stop showing up. If the Lord will call you home tonight, who's going to do it? I'll wait. Because I guarantee you they'll find somebody. They'll say, oh, Lord, that Diane, she was a doer. Whew. We may have to get two people to do what she did. And they may have to. And guess what? They will. And so I want you to know that you are worth the time. And guess what? You're not indispensable. You can be replaced. Somebody else can do it. They may not do it as well as you. They may not do it and look as good as you. They may not do it and get it as right as you, but they can do it and they will do it. So, you making yourself indispensable and constantly being available is just allowing other people to take all the energy that God for the day. And I'm sure some of that energy the Creator wants you to use creatively. So, the other thing I hear is, um, isn't this selfish? Yeah, okay. And what's wrong with selfish? To take care of self, to be proud of self, to want to do for self. I don't see the problem. I really don't. So, and I don't know what the problem might be. But what I want you to do is think about, why wouldn't I want to take some time for me? Why do I need to be depleted? Why do I need to be bone tired, crawling into bed at night? Why do I need to be stretched like a rubber band almost to the breaking point? Does that make you more valuable? Does it make you more worthy? Does it make you feel like somebody wants you in their life? Because that's something you need to examine if it is. Our worthiness is not predicated on how hard we work or how many people we can serve or how stretched we are or how tired we are at the end of the day. So instead of worrying about um, if it's selfish, I want you to think about when you're on the airplane, that oxygen mask message. Put it on yourself before you help somebody else get oxygen. And the other thing I want you to think of is that you know that it's in Matthew 22. Matthew 22. Love your neighbor as yourself. I think when I was 13 in Sunday school, when I heard that, I was like, oh, so that means you don't want everybody loving you. If they don't love themselves, you don't want them loving you. And I know that's not, the pastor said, well, I don't know if they mean it like that, but okay, I get what you're saying. And this is it. It doesn't say love one another, love your neighbor instead of yourself, as you love yourself. So you have to love you. Because if you don't love you, what you giving everybody else? Think about that. If you don't love you, then maybe what you're really giving is some counterfeit for a counterfeit form of love. You center yourself in your life and then treat people as you treat yourself. As you love yourself, love others. Okay? So let's stop with that. Oh, it's selfish and I should be taking care of everybody else. You have to take care of you too. Because guess what? Don't nobody want nobody mad around them talking about, I'm trying to help you. And it's like, maybe you need to go help yourself. Okay, that's all right. I don't need no help. And that's usually my response. When I see somebody working too bone, I was like, you know what? I don't need, no. What I need you to do is sit down, take some deep breaths, and relax, honey. Just relax. Can you do that for me? Take a deep breath. You look tired. Stop it. I want you to sit down. That's what you can do for me. And we have to get over this thing about how we got to help people, because sometimes what you're doing is not called help. It's called codependency. It's called enabling. And you have a need to do all this stuff. So you satisfying your need with this person who's looking for somebody to use. Now, that may be a subject to go over with your therapist, but it's not an act of selflessness. You're getting a need met. And maybe you can get that need met another way if you just address the fact that you have this need that needs to be fulfilled. And it's not really about helping others, it's about what you need. That's what when I say giving out this counterfeit kind of love. If you don't take time for yourself to help yourself, if you want to allow everybody access to you and give everything away, child, please, what then there's something else going on. And like I said, that's a conversation for you and your therapist. Okay. And so oh, and the other thing I get, and this is my mother. Oh, I can't just sit around. I feel guilty. I feel like something ain't right if I'm not up doing something in the house. Because there's always something that needs to be done. Exactly. There's always something that needs to be done. So go sit down. It'll get done. Go sit down, relax. Because there's always going to be something. And if you decide that you want to take an hour to just engage in some kind of little indulgence, have a glass of wine. You got a favorite chocolate? Sit down and enjoy a piece of that for 15 minutes. Is there a friend that's been on your mind, but you haven't had time to call them? Decide, you know what, tonight I can fold those clothes in the morning before I go to work. Tonight I'm gonna call Siobhan and we're gonna talk. That's what I'm gonna do. That's how I'm gonna spend my time. Because I know when she and I get together, we always laugh and we have a good time. And I need that right now. Do that. Laundry could be folded at any time. And guess what? The laundry ain't going to yell at you. The laundry's not going to talk back at you. The laundry's not going to ask you. All the laundry's going to do is get more and more wrinkled. And you can put it back in the dryer and hit refresh. Okay? But anyway, so you know what I do then. But you take time for you. It's part of loving yourself. And the guilt, okay, this guilt. We need to let's unpack this for a minute. Society has made us feel guilty that if we're not being productive, that somehow or another, um, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And even I've always rejected this Proverbs 31 woman. I, and because, and yeah, I know the stuff about, her children love her husband calls her blessed and all this. Oh, that's nice. But when I read that, I get tired. I'm like, oh my God, you got to do all these things. You got to be all this to people. Not all the time. And that's it. So when they start equating being busy to being some godlike creature, I push back on that. But that's me. You do you. But I push back on that because I am not God. I'm just a human being, and I'm frail. I have things that I need to have. I'm not perfect, and I'm not going to be productive, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it either. So maybe that's a little Scorpio in me. I don't know. I want you to reframe this guilt thing and start to realize that you resting and enjoying some little pleasure, that's productivity. Because when we are in good states of mind, we are able to do so much more. Um, Let me tell you what I notice. I can be working on a project, and there's two types of productivity, or what we call work. There's kind of work where you sit there and look at the screen for about 15 minutes, and then maybe you'll type a few things, and then you scroll and you look at Facebook and see what's going on there. Then you might do Instagram, then you get up and get a snack. Or if you're at the job, you might go for a break or go talk to somebody. You come back. Get another cup of coffee and you sit there or some water and you just go and you do your thing. And so you're on a computer and you do a little bit more work and, but you get distracted by something else. Okay, there's that. And I find that when I am not well rested, when I have a lot of stuff on my mind, when I'm overwhelmed, that's what I end up doing on the computer. That's what I end up doing. I don't really work. And when I find myself there, I get up and get away because when I'm really working and when I'm being productive, I get on a computer, I am focused, I am there, and I do what I have to do. And what would usually take me maybe 2 hours to do, I can get it done in a half an hour, 45 minutes because I'm focused, because I sat down with the purpose and I know what I'm doing and I'm not exhausted by anything else. I'm not, I don't have all these thoughts going through my mind about what I need to do and what this person's going to do in this situation and how am I going to get this one there and this long schedule. I am focused, but that's because I'm rested. And that's because now I have put myself in a place and space of being productive, and I cannot do that when I'm not rested. I cannot do that when I've had no time for myself. I'm not there. And so, for me to do the most things, for me to be uber protected, I'm working on now this boundary checklist that I have for you. I'm doing a much longer journal um, well, yeah, it's a much longer thing. So instead of just listing affirmations, I'm actually creating like a journal prompts and things for you to think about. I mean, listing boundaries, having things for you to think about that smell like something burning in my house. I'm sorry. Um, I'm writing down areas that you need to be thinking about in order to now I'm distracted. In order to understand why you need to set this boundary or what this boundary is going to do for you or how to go about it, but it's to make it applicable. So I don't want you to just read something and go, oh, this is nice. Oh, I never thought about this. But I want you to think about how are you going to reframe this and change this? If this speaks to you, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to make applications and changes to your life? How are you going to transform so that whatever it is that you're reading, whatever it is that's speaking to you, you can manifest it in your life? thus improving your life. Okay, so I'm making a longer form of that, but that takes time, and is going and is from what I'm looking at now, because I'm doing all the formatting and you know, typesetting and all that stuff, and that takes time. And I need to be focused when I do it. So I don't do it if I'm not well rested, and if I haven't been able to you know, not just get sleep, but clear my schedule. So this is dedicated. I'm not doing anything else with this time. Then I can't, you know, I won't get it done. And I can give you an example. I've been dealing with sciatica. Ooh, your girl has been in pain. And sitting at this computer was not what I was able to do. I just couldn't do it. So for like the past 5 days, I haven't done anything with this checklist, this book that I'm doing. So I ended up going to the doctor to get some medication to address it because everything else that I was doing just wasn't working. Okay. But anyway, so that's how I ended up, you know, I decided, let me, you know, I'm going to work on this project, but I need to do it. There's a certain frame of mind I need to be in when I do it. And I have to prepare myself by making sure that I can clear my schedule. Sometimes it's things I, you know, my husband and I take turns picking up our granddaughter, right? So today he's going to do it because I'm doing this and I'm here with you all right now. So he allows me to do that because, and I, first of all, I allow him to go pick her up instead of feeling like I have to do everything. And so he's doing that, and we support each other that way, and that's a good way. That's a good way to live. That's how we like to live anyway. Um, and so I want you to realize that you don't need to feel guilty about being productive. What you need to do is find a way that works for you. Productivity works for you, and understand that sleeping is a part of being productive. Rest is a part of it. You're not a machine. You're a human being. It's about you being versus doing. Okay. Well, it seems like if I just go away, everything falls apart, and then I got more of a mess to clean up. No, you don't. No, you don't. You may have to organize the other people to clean it up, but you don't need to clean up. You don't need to fix other people's mistakes. Stop taking that on. And so I want to tell you, I want let's look at some situations in the past that our foremothers can tell us about this whole idea of productivity. So just think about, you know, when our foremothers were enslaved and they had no decisions about what they would do with their own bodies and things of that nature. They didn't have control over their time, their capacity. They were expected to work from sun up to sundown, and they did. They didn't have margins because margins could be a place of violence for them. If they were caught napping or sleeping or whatever, they didn't have that. They just didn't have that. And so um, after the time of enslavement, now you found yourself having to work just for acknowledgement. Just you're working to prove your worth. You're working because you got people looking at you like you half human, and you know that's not true. You know that you're trying to get employment. You want to do something other than the work that people think you're only supposed to stick to, like cleaning and things like that. You have desires to go to school and all these other things. So you're always constantly trying to prove your worth and prove that you can do certain things, and all of the microaggressions and commentary that you would receive, you just let that flow off your back. Remember that movie Hidden Figures where they had to go, you know, walk this quarter of a mile to go to the bathroom, and then the supervisor wondered why, what takes you so long? And so one day she just, the character, I think it was Catherine, just goes off. And by the time she finished telling him what she's got to do to go to the bathroom, and he goes, the main white character goes in and he sees the bathroom says white only or whatever. He takes the sign down. He said, now anybody go to the bathroom. those are some of the things that they had to endure. And a lot of times we were taught to just do it, just find a way, just make a way, don't make noise, just do whatever. We don't have to do these things anymore. We sometimes are taught out of trauma how to respond to certain things. Generational trauma, it may not have happened to everybody, but one generation teaches the response to the next generation. I remember being young and people getting beatings and their parents saying, I'm going to beat you so the white man doesn't have to. So the violence of the street became the violence of the home as a preventative way to get you in check so you would be in check when you leave out the door. It was a survival technique, but it was trauma and it was handed down. Okay? It was trauma. So we're in a position to reclaim what was taken. We don't have to do those things. And we're not going to do those things. And so I just want you to know that we don't need to work ourselves to the bone. We need to find moments, whether it's in the morning or before you go to bed at night or at lunchtime. I don't know. I worked in a school, so I would get a half an hour for lunch. Ain't much you can do in a half an hour, but many times I found myself having lunch and eating while I was working. But I wouldn't take any other time. So what I started doing was just that, eating while I worked, which I wouldn't say is really a good thing for your digestion, but I would do it. And then would take some time later on in that, maybe after everybody else has finished their lunch, and I'll say, I'm going to have some quiet time. I'm having my lunch break now. So I wouldn't go sit and have lunch with people. I just let me do some work. And then when everybody else was working and their lunch breaks were over, I would just close my office and sit in my office and pray, or I play some gospel music softly, or I would read a book, or I would take that time to scroll if that's what I felt like doing, or I'd call a friend and just check in. I'd meditate, but I wouldn't work. And I didn't eat during that time. That's not what I wanted to do at that time. That was recharge time. That was let me refocus. And I'm telling you, I like to do it towards the end, like around 2 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock, because school's over at 3 o'clock. And so I did it then. So between that emptying out, and when I say emptying out, I was a social worker, a school social worker. So I'm getting rid of all these emotions that I have gotten from kids all day long and from the adults. And I'm giving that stuff to God. I'm giving it back out into the atmosphere. I'm getting it out of me. I'm looking at things and I'm saying, you know what? That's not your work. I can help this person by helping them see X, Y, and Z, but the heavy lifting is for them. It's not for me. I would just kind of like not compartmentalize, but I would take things and put it. You know how you have those trays on your desk for your in work, in and out, and stuff you're going to do for later. I will put it in the basket it belonged. This is for them. This is for me, and I don't know who this is. This is for God over here because I can't do this, and they don't look like they can do it either. So we're gonna give this to God. And that's how I tried to get my day, get everything that I took in out. Because when you're working on a job and the first thing you deal with is a kid who's cutting, or a kid who tells you that there's some abuse going on at home, or a kid who's missing, or a kid that comes in bruised, or a kid who comes in fighting, When this is the kind of energy that you're taking in, you got to get that out of you. You can't carry all those burdens. And so that would be my time. That was my margin. And I emptied out before I left my job so that I can go home and do other things and be other things instead of the vessel that carried everybody else's burdens. Okay? So we leave that alone. Um, we are valued way beyond our productivity. And so, when I have worked with women to try to help them see that, very often you would, you work with these women who are very high profile in that they're high achieving. Um, I've seen women juggling full-time job, part-time practices, children, responsibilities at church, and they're working on a PhD. I'm talking about like uber busy. And oftentimes feeling like nothing is right. They're not getting anything right. So these are the people that their margins are non existent because they're doing everything and they feel like they have it and they're capable of doing so much, but yet they feel like they're drowning. And so those are the people that when I get them, when I see them, the questions I ask them are about how do you do so much? What part of this can you give to somebody else? Where do you feel this in your body when you come home drained? Where does it settle? Have you ever noticed that? Where is it in your body? Because you are carrying it. And I'm going to tell you where I carry it in my body, my lower back. My lower back will get so tight I can't lay down, I can't sit up, I can't, it just hurts. And when that happens, I stop everything. Everything. And I have to find myself, go someplace, take some deep breaths. And it's not going to happen just with 10 deep breaths. There's other work that has to be done as well, but I start to do it because this thing in my back, I can't do this. I'm not doing it. And then I have to evaluate how I allowed it to get to that. Because by the time I start feeling it in my back, by the time my back is not just about seizing up, it's because I've let things go way too long. And so I begin to create margins. Margins. This is where we're keeping all this productivity, all this doing for others, all this carrying loads and working out schedules and solving problems is staying right here. But over there is my breathing space. Over there is where I go for God. Over there is where I go get recharged. Over there is where I go feel whole. Over there is where I heal. Where is your over there? Where's your over there? Where's your margin? And why aren't you running to it to get filled? And if you're not running to it, it's probably because you don't have it. Sis, I'm saying this because I love you. And it's probably true for some brothers too. You cannot, you cannot allow your cup to run bone dry and think you are any good to anybody at all. And so I'm going to wind this down and I want to help you to look at where the deficit may be in your life. If you don't have any white space, if you can't tell me where your white space is and how often you go there and what happens when you're there and what do you do when you're there, then you don't even understand. I want you to think about this for a minute. This is a little emotional margin assessment. What is your actual capacity? Not the superhuman fantasy that you have in your head. Look at your energy level throughout the days and week. What is your energy reserve? Okay. How does it feel in your body? What's going on with you during the week? So give yourself that little assessment. And so as you do that, think about your emotional reserve. How many things have you felt this day? Just in one day. Look at that. Have you gone from angry to laughter to being overwhelmed to being anxious to being nervous, frustrated, whatever it is? Think about that. And then what are you committed to do about it? How are you going to manage differently your work responsibility, your family, church, personal goals, your social expectations? How are you going to rearrange those things and realign them so that you can take care of you? Okay. So that's where I want you to think about this week as you're going into your week. And so as we close out, I want you to know that I had a lot more I was going to do today, but it's time to close out. I want you to know that you need to create some emotional space for you to recharge, re energize, reboot, whatever you want to call it, but don't burn yourself out. Okay? There are create places where you can go to breathe and experience that freedom that comes with it. Um, and I want you to just to be blessed in your doing. I want to close out with this little I'm gonna give you some journaling prompts. What does my life feel like with margin? What am I afraid will happen if I create space in the margin? Where in my life am I operating beyond capacity? What would change if I operated at 80% instead of 120? So I want to close out with this blessing. Daughters of divine joy, hear this blessing. May you give yourself permission to be human. May you release the need to be superhuman. May you create space for breath, for rest, and for life to happen. May you trust that you are enough, even in the margins. May you honor the temple of your body with sacred space. May you remember that God gave you limits for a reason. May you experience the freedom that comes with breathing room. May you walk in the abundant life that Jesus promised, a life with margin for joy. You are not a machine. You are not a machine. You are beloved daughter of the Most High. You are worthy of rest. You are deserving of space. You are a daughter of divine joy. Now go create some margin and watch what God does in that space. Be blessed, be beloved, and I will see you next time. Next time, we're going to talk about graceful excellence because I know y'all try to be perfect and get everything right. So, we're going to talk about how to be gracefully excellent, not perfect, gracefully excellent. So I want to thank the folks here at the PA Empowerment Network. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for your comments. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Okay, love you. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I will see you next week at the same time. Be blessed, y'all. Bye bye.